Sir Josiah Stamp, the director of the Bank of England. 1940, he said, "Bankers own the earth. Take it away from them, but leave them with enough power to create credit, and with a flick of a pen, they will create enough money to buy it back again. If you want to be slaves of bankers and pay the cost of your own slavery, then let the bankers entirely control money and credit." Speaking to that, Senator Jeff Markley on the line with us, a member of the Senate Banking Committee. My senator, one of my two senators from the state of Oregon, and one of the finest in the United States Senate, in my humble opinion. Senator Markley, welcome to our program.
Tom, it's great to be with you.
This financial reform bill that's going through the Senate. Yesterday you had Maria Cantwell, as I recall, and Russ Feingold say no. You had a couple of Republicans, Collins and Snow, say yes. There's all these weird cross currents. We've got apparently a major loophole in the commodity trading piece, Section 739, that says that while you can't trade commodities without going through this exchange, if you do, there's no penalty. What's going on? What's your take on this? And Chris Dodd is behaving, in my opinion, like somebody who's trying to set himself up as a bank lobbyist as soon as he leaves Congress next year. Am I being too cynical?
Well, I'll tell you, there is a fair amount of things that are very good in this bill. For example, in terms of retail mortgages, where there's huge predatory practices, in this bill is a ban on prepayment penalties that lock folks in subprimes into bad terms. And also, we were able to pass an amendment on the floor that bans yield spread premiums, which are the kickbacks that have had loan originators' interest 180 degrees out of those with common citizens. And so there are pieces like that scattered through this. Not everything we wanted, but the frustration on the floor is that the Republicans are blocking amendments from being heard. Not just saying, hey, we'll let them be heard if you go to a 60-vote majority, but even just saying we won't let them be heard at all. And there's no way without unanimous consent to hear an amendment unless you spend a week going through the cloture supermajority exercise.
Now, this is something that I think most of our listeners don't understand. And in fact, I think probably 99% of Americans have no idea. People understand, or have come to understand over the years, particularly since the whole nuclear option thing around Sam Alito, that it is possible for 40 members of the 100-member Senate to filibuster, to block further, to block debate on an issue or block a vote essentially on an issue.
Yes.
But that one member can prevent an amendment from coming to the floor or from being debated. Explain that.
Well, what it is if you don't have unanimous consent,
which means everybody agrees.
Everybody, all 100 say yes. Then what you have to do is file a motion that would trigger that supermajority vote. But that vote, you have to wait 2 days before you can hold the vote, and then after the vote, you have to have 30 hours of debate before you can hold a second vote. And so any motion like that ties up the Senate for weeks. So on a bill like this where there's 200 amendments, it would take 200 weeks if you can't get unanimous consent to address those amendments, which, you can't spend 4 years on a bill. And so it's a very effective tool in blocking things people don't want to vote on. And the Markley-Levin Amendment, which is designed to say no high-risk investing in our banking system because you don't want your access to Fed funds or insured deposits. You want those to go out in loans to our families and small business.
Right.
You don't want
which they're not doing right now, by the way. The banksters are hanging on to this money and gambling with it, doing proprietary trading in the back room.
Yes, that is a huge problem, and it makes it very hard for our economy to recover, for our small businesses to recover, for our families to get their feet back under them, and we got to end it.
So, what's the status of the Markley-Levin Amendment?
So it is pending right now because although we weren't allowed to vote, I used a parliamentary maneuver to connect my amendment to an amendment from Brownback, a completely different topic.
The Republican senator from Kansas.
Yes. And so as long as he doesn't withdraw his amendment, my amendment is still alive, and we're hoping for a debate and a vote any moment, but so far there's no sign the Republicans are going to allow that. So if there is continued stalling till this afternoon, and we go into and we pass the cloture on the bill, Because I'm attached to a germane amendment, and because my staff spent the night rewriting my amendment to be, quote, germane, another archaic Senate standard, there will be, if the amendment isn't withdrawn, Brown Bank is not withdrawn, there will be a vote on our amendment. So we're encouraging people to really press their senators to say no high-risk investing, taking away the funds families and businesses need for loans. And furthermore, when the lending blows up, you don't want to blow up the banks along with it.
Yeah.
And then finally, this bill has in it, and Carl Levin did outstanding work in this subcommittee with the Goldman Sachs hearings, it says if you sell securities, if you design and sell securities, you can't take out insurance on those that you sell.
Right, which is what Paulson and Goldman did famously.
So this is like having an electrician come to your house and rewire something for you, and then he's allowed or she's allowed to go and take out fire insurance on your house. And you kind of go, wait a minute, what'd you do when you wired this my house?
Right.
And it just takes away the integrity of the security system for aggregating capital, and it's a huge problem. And so we've got to try to fix that. So those are the two big things in this particular bill.
We're talking to Senator Jeff Markley and of Oregon, and who's on the banking committee, the Senate Banking Committee, which is dealing with all this stuff. Senator Markley, the Center for Media and Democracy, is reporting that the penalty provisions in Blanche Lincoln's bill, or amendment rather, which is pretty tough stuff, her amendment, are being stripped out by Chris Dodd in what's called a manager's amendment. And they say this is where the changes in Lincoln's derivative language will happen, meaning there won't even be a separate vote on removing the spinoff provision. What the heck is a manager's amendment, and what can be done to stop Chris Dodd from stripping this out?
The chair and the ranking member of the relevant committee, who are basically called the floor managers, they're down on the floor in the center aisle.
Which is Chris Dodd in this case.
Which was Chris Dodd and Shelby. They basically, if they agree on things, they can put it into an amendment and compile a whole bunch of things together. That's the tradition of a manager's amendment. For example, I would love to have my amendment incorporated if the manager's amendment has good stuff in it, other good stuff, but it isn't going to happen because Shelby's not going to agree to it. And so if they can block me from a vote, I'm toast. The principal's toast. But that's the idea. But we have not seen the manager's amendment. We probably won't see it until a few hours before we have to vote on it. And that's one of the challenges. We don't have a Senate rule that says you need at least 5 hours or to see an amendment before you have to vote on it. So that is another systemic problem in the Senate.
Yeah, well, apparently both Dodd and Lincoln told the Financial Times that there was, quote, room to negotiate on this, and that it would show up in the manager's amendment. So this has got a lot of people very, very spooked. Are we going to, we just have a minute left, Senator Markley, are we going to see at the end of the day any kind of real reform come out of this, or is this going to be lipstick on a pig, in your opinion?
Well, there are pieces in this that it's a huge stride toward getting the derivatives onto markets. As you point out, it's missing penalty provisions. Hopefully, if we don't get that done, we can get it done in conference. But just having it in law is a huge step from where we are now with these completely dark markets with the information controlled by about 5 firms, so nobody knows what's going on. I was really struck in The Big Short, the conversation that shows that even sophisticated buyers didn't know who was selling them the insurance, who was on the other side. And you want to know who your insurance company is because you're betting on their solvency if you buy a product. I mean, it's just one little glimpse into how dark these markets are. Yeah,
and then we found out that AIG, which was one of the major insurers, actually didn't have the assets to back up their insurance.
They didn't put any collateral on their insurance.
That's right.
Completely unregulated.
Senator Jeff Markley, merkley.senate.gov. You can read all about it, Merkley. Senator, thanks so much for being with us today.
Great to be with you, Thom.
Good
Thank
talking.
you.